So at the beginning of the year we set up a Blogger account. We had this from last year, but we set up a new blog this year to sort of collate all of our work that we've done over the whole year. Blogger was probably the best choice to use because when you create a new post you have the ability to edit the HTML, which means you can add in embed videos. We embedded the slide shares and parentheses that we'll talk about next. But yeah, it was just a really easy way for us to be able to upload something to our blog, show it to our tutors from any computer, because you can access the blogs from anywhere you have internet access. When signing up for Blogger, because it's owned by Google, you then got like a Google account, which meant we were able to use Google Drive, which is also provided by the college. This is like a cloud storage service, so you can upload things and download them into anywhere that you have internet access. I started using this last year in order to be able to work on stuff at home. So I started in college, upload it to there, and use it at home. The good thing about it is you can also create files within the Google Quick Office. I think that's what it's called. So you can create Word documents, PowerPoint, spreadsheets, that kind of thing. What we as a group found particularly helpful, we have the option to share a folder, so everyone within our group was able to contribute to a single folder on Google Drive. So at the beginning of the year we often spread out the responsibilities, so I would do one thing, John would do another, and Georgia would do something else, and when we completed that all we had to do was upload it into this one folder, which meant that everyone could download it and use it, upload it to the blog, that kind of thing. It just made the whole process a lot easier. We weren't relying on bringing in memory sticks, that kind of thing. During the research and planning stage we had to build up our knowledge of codes and conventions of documentaries from various genres and subgenres, just so that we could use these to then develop our own production piece. So what we did was we watched a lot of YouTube videos of documentaries, ones in college, and then by watching them we could see the similarities between them and make note of the things that we saw that all of them used, like interviews, cutaways, title cards. And one of the easiest ways to display this information was through a PowerPoint presentation. So you can use text, you can use images, that kind of thing. It's just a really good software, very simple to use, just to display the information. The only problem we had with that was that once we've made the presentation we were unable to put it onto Blogger straight away. We needed a third party site to sort of host the presentation and then give us the ability to embed it into the HTML of our blog posts, and the site we chose to use was SlideShare. It is just a simple case of uploading your presentation as a PowerPoint file, and then it converts it into each single slide, and then posts it to the web. So this is one of my analysis pieces here. It runs just the same as a regular PowerPoint presentation, except for if you were to put a piece of video in you couldn't play it, and the links don't work, so it kind of converts each slide into a picture but then presents it in a similar way to PowerPoint would. So this is just one of mine on my profile page here, and it gives you the option to embed it. So if you click there, it gives you the relative HTML and some different sizing options there, and all we did was copy and paste that into a new post and it appears on the blog just like that. It is quite simple, it's free software to use, they're the benefits of it, and people recognise the PowerPoint format, so it's good to use that on the blog. It's very clear, very simple, just probably the best way to display that information. I think compared to my work last year, the thing that has probably most improved is the presentation of my research and planning and this was through finding new technologies and new ways of doing this. Whereas last year I would have used SlideShare and PowerPoint to display most of it, this year I was introduced to Prezi and Taggle, which are two websites that you can use to display information, as well as researching my own, which I sort of developed later on in the post-production process, and the evaluation, things like that. But for research and planning, I sort of was introduced to Prezi and I didn't really know what it was. So to begin with, I found out it was like a mind map creating software. So I really just kept to the simple sort of spider diagram format, which is it's dead easy to use once you sort of get your mind around the tools and things. So all you have to do is click here. It usually comes pre-prepared with this middle one, and the title there. You can type that in straight away, and then just to create these you can insert an arrow, insert a line, and then if you double click you can add different forms of text. It's got some presets, and then there's options to import video. You can import sound and photos there. But yeah, to begin with, in the research and planning stage, I really did just use it to sort of take a mind map I might have done on paper and present it in a clearer form digitally. And then it just gets hosted for free. So that's a good way of doing things, especially when it's free and not having to pay. I've seen websites similar to this in the past, but I think this is probably the best one I've seen, and it's also the fact that it is free is good. And once you've saved it, you can then get the embed code like you would with SlideShare and just apply it to the blog. Another piece of free software that I used to display my research and planning was Taggle. This was introduced to me this year again. Basically it's a program to produce tag clouds, which are simply just the sort of images made up of words. So for this one, for example, when we found that list of codes and conventions, rather than just being presented as a list straight onto Blogger, it's kind of boring. So what I did was put all of the points you found here, so like interviews, observation, expositions, and brought together all the codes and conventions from the research I've done, and then from the documentary theory, and then as a class we made a big list, and each sort of presented in their own way. So you just put them all in there and then it produces this. It sort of randomises the colours and the sizes, but you can like change them a little bit, change the font and the colours, which I did later on to make it more relevant to our topic, just because if you're doing a presentation it's important to have consistency, but I did that sort of further on in the planning stage for our content brainstorm, which is viewable on my blog. Yeah, so what I found out was if you uploaded a simple image, you could then get Taggle to replicate it. So here we have a coffee bean after we decided to on our topic of coffee, and then we changed all the colours. It automatically sort of like matches the colour to the picture that you used, but then like it didn't quite look right, so then I changed the colours, and then we produced this content brainstorm that's got all the ideas of things that we can use, and then we kept it brown. I did a similar thing with the blog, turned it brown, just to sort of, if we're doing a campaign, when you're presenting a campaign it's important to have consistency and like nothing looks out of place, which obviously is different from before when we had the green one. Obviously I hadn't decided on our topic yet. So something I'm quite a big fan of are infographics. These are basically sort of either web pages or images, image files produced to present data, just kind of in a clearer, more readable way. So after we conducted our questionnaire and got the results back, originally we were going to put it into Excel and just use SlideShare to post that, but I suggested that we use a program, the Infogram, infogra.am, that's the URL, just to sort of make everything a bit more interesting and easy to read. Over here we've got the tools that you can use. It's just got really extensive chart tools, as well as text and titles, that kind of thing. Some of my favourites are this one here. I just think it looks really good. And then we have things like this. So we asked a certain amount of people, and then we did the percentage of male and female, and each person is represented here, and different colours to represent the different genders. It's that kind of thing that you just don't get in Excel or PowerPoint, which I think these display a lot better, and it's easy to read. You just scroll down, it has each question as a different section. I just think it displays the information in a really good way. Sort of gives you a more in-depth view of the charts and the graphs. Some are better suited to different kinds of information than others. An infogram helps you to like quantify certain things and put them into a graph form. And then again, we did the browns and creams theme, which was popular in our questionnaire, just to sort of tie everything in together. So it's just online software. You just log in, it's free to use, but when you do create a free account, it just adds the banner on the bottom. Perhaps one of the most important pieces of equipment that we used during the construction section of our coursework was the Sony HD camera. The models we used were the Sony HXR MC2000 HD video camera. In order to get the best looking documentary, we needed to use a high quality camera. So this one shoots in 1080p HD, which is one of the highest commercial resolutions you can use. This is provided by college, so we could go in, fill in the form and take one out to do our filming during college time, take it away over the weekend or overnight, which obviously we needed to do to get the best amount of cutaways, to get the right interviews and things. The benefits of using this camera is obviously the professional quality. It's high grade, high quality equipment. It's portable, so it's very easy to take both the camera and the tripod to and from the interview locations, to our houses to film cutaways. It was especially come in handy because in the tight environment of the cafes, especially Costa and Esquires, we needed quite a compact unit in order to do the correct filming and not take up as much space, and this is perfect for that. We have two different kinds of microphones, which provide us with different sound quality. We have the the ambient mic, which is the one that's on the camera here. That picks up everything that's around the camera, so that was good for cutaways. We can use we use the sound to sort of create the actual feel of a cafe during the documentary. We picked up things like the cups rattling, teaspoons, that kind of thing. It all just adds to the effect of the environment that we're in. The other kind of microphone was a pin mic, and we used these for the interviews. So what it plugs into the exact same place, but it's a tiny microphone, and it just picks up the sound that's directly around it. So that was just hidden. A few of them were hid in the button, just behind the collar. This was good because it didn't pick up any of the noise around it. It just picked up solely what they were saying. Sometimes it did pick up quite loud noises, and that was something we could have looked at to sort of isolate them a bit better. But overall, you can hear exactly what it's saying, and you can understand everyone. The tripod is particularly handy because you can adjust it, adjust the height, and it's got the spirit level to make sure that it's everything's level. So the fact that you can adjust it so minutely, it gave us the ability to get very well thought out rule of thirds, the eye level shots. It's available. You can turn it like that to do the panning shots. We use quite a few of them on the cutaways. The zoom's really good. We also use that just to bring the cutaways a bit more live, so they weren't just a plain simple image which you could have took a photo of. Made it more dynamic, more interesting for the audience to watch. The piece of software that I've used most during the construction process is definitely Adobe Premiere Pro. It's an Adobe Creative Suite program it's centered around creating and editing videos. Having used Adobe products before, the layout was a little bit new to me, but from guidance from the tutors, looking up tutorials online, on YouTube, that kind of thing, I was able to grasp it pretty quickly. It's quite a simple layout. So here is the main product, so the timeline, this is everything that's included in the documentary along here, so it's split into video and audio, and anything that features here will show up in this window. That shows you how it will look in the final product. Throughout the process you have to render the video every so often, which just produces like a finer effect. To keep it from running slow when you're editing, it sort of condenses the file size, so you don't get the accurate picture until you actually export it. On this panel it shows you sort of like the raw footage. So what we did was we dragged and dropped all of the footage that we gathered into this bin here, and just called it the edit, and then we could put folders in there. So we've got a cutaway folder, an interview folder, a folder for Vox Pops, and all you do is you click on there and double click what you want to see, and it'll show up here, so you can watch that and select the piece of footage that you want from the interview using the start and end point tools without affecting this in any way. Once you've got the piece of footage, what we did was we went a couple of seconds either side, so we definitely got the piece that we needed, and then you can either drag just the video, just the audio, or both together into the timeline. We then looked at it in more detail. You can zoom right in to show milliseconds and frames with that section there on the timeline. So this helps us to get a really fine edit to select exactly what we wanted. For the opening title, the main thing we used was cutaways, so we collected loads of cutaways and then just imported them straight into the timeline. We then used the razor tool there, that cuts a clip into smaller sections. So if you have a longer clip and you select a section of it, you can just press click and it will separate whatever comes before and whatever comes after that frame. This was handy to sort of easily just cut to the frame that we wanted and then delete anything that we didn't. Another way of refining a piece of footage is to use the selection tool. If you just go to the edge there, it'll turn red and you can drag it in to the frame. That just hides anything before or after the point. Similarly, you've got the track select tool, so if you want to move everything along, you highlight that one instead. The select tool singles out that one clip. Can we zoom back out so we can see the whole project? In order to create the title, originally we created it in Photoshop, but this turned out to be a little bit more difficult to use. So we went into the title function in Adobe Premiere Pro. It's a full workshop, it's got every tool that we needed, really. So you just create the new title, and that gave us the Cafe Nation text, which I produced. So we had the font there, the second font there, and then I copied and pasted that to create a 3D effect, just to separate the two a little bit, and sort of anchor the meaning a bit better. So we've got the separate Cafe Nation, the two aspects of our documentary. In our sequence, it fades in like this. We have the kettle boiling and steam rises and then it fades in. like the steam onto the camera lens. To do this, I just used two versions of the title, so I put one on top of each other. One of them with a Gaussian blur to sort of give that steamy effect there, which fades in, and then a solid one above that's sharper, which fades in on top of that to sort of give that kind of steam effect, and then it comes completely into focus there. It's relatively easy to get archive footage as well. We just downloaded that off YouTube and then imported it straight into there like we did with any of the other footage. I then used the razor tool again in this section just to cut it up and get more relevant photos. This was from an existing documentary called The Coffee Story, The Ethiopia Trail, which I watched to do a little bit of research for hours itself. This had longer sections talking to people, but we just removed them to put it into the documentary. Other things we used in Adobe Premiere is to import the sort of banners at the bottom, which explain the name and the position of the person that's being interviewed. What we did was we created this in Photoshop, which gave us like a better ability to edit, get exactly the shape that we wanted. We had the fade on there as well, and then just imported them as PNGs into Premiere. So when we created the Photoshop file, we had it at the same dimensions as the video, and then kept all this transparent so each one would go exactly the same place on the screen. To produce a cutaway like this one, so we have Fiona there talking, and then the cutaway comes in. These anchor the meaning, so it really explains like what she's talking about. It gives a bit more of a dynamic feel for the audience, so they're not bored just watching someone talk all the time. This is needed nowadays because of like the high demand for fast-paced programming, you know, keep the audience interested. It also fits in with our theme because like the fast-paced coffee, it gives you energy, that kind of thing. So we did have like quite a few interviews cut next to each other, showing loads of different views, and then the cutaways just add another factor into the visual changes. But you have to do this. You just drag the clip. You open it in here. Say we use this one. So you have the cutaway there, and then you just drag it and put it onto a line that was above. So anything above the original video will show over that frame, and anything below will be hidden. So we simply just created a whole line just specifically for the cutaways, so we didn't complicate things any. And then another line for the banners. We felt this was the best workflow to use, just so that we had things clear on the timeline and clear in our heads. We also inserted music into the documentary, especially the opening title that has music running throughout. This was the song, The Coffee Song by Frank Sinatra. All we had to do there was isolate one of the audio tracks that we wanted to put the music on, and then just drag and drop again into the correct place. To make it loop a bit better, the song, so that it didn't sort of confuse, what I did was I used the razor tool again, to a point where it could loop without you noticing. And then just copied and pasted the same thing over and over again. One of the things we perhaps struggled with during the editing process is the audio levels. So if you go to the audio mixer, that shows you the kind of general levels for it. Say you take an interview like this one, effect controls, what we had to do was change the volume so that they match better. for one reason or another, the audio on some of the interviews differed from others, and the voiceover was a lot louder. So during the editing process, we had to do our best to kind of fade in or lower the volume of some of them just to get it more level. Another problem that we encountered during the editing process were flashes. So this was where we may have had an interview, and over the top of that, top of the interview, we put a cutaway, but then decided against the cutaway and moved it. For some reason, we had a frame that wouldn't leave. It sort of attached itself to the original interview footage, and would play that single frame in the wrong place. It was like only a single frame, but you could definitely notice it whilst watching the documentary. So I tried a few different things to rectify it, but originally I tried to replace the original footage, but it still appeared in the same place. And we asked the tutors for help, but they couldn't really work it out, so I looked it up onto YouTube and there was nothing there. So what I had to do was find the affected frame in the original raw footage. So if we find one of the affected frames, there was one here. So what I had to do was I had to find this footage as a raw file, and then use the export frame tool to create a still image from that single frame, and then place the single frame above the affected frame on top of everything in the timeline, and this just sort of covered it up, and it was seamlessly done. So like you can't tell it in the final edit that there was anything wrong with that. Yeah, so during like the whole process I got more comfortable with using the software. So at the beginning it was quite difficult to get around, but then when you understood the basics you could sort of build on that, and by the end I think I was quite capable in using the software. When we finally come to exporting the video, all you simply did was export and media, and then to get the best footage to like sort of the best quality footage, and because we were uploading it to YouTube to place onto our blogs, there was specific presets for YouTube. So the first time I exported it took quite a while, and then took a while to upload, but after I found these, it was much quicker, and it sits in the YouTube format a lot better, and when you watch it you can definitely tell the quality's there on the second time I uploaded it. And I think that's important, because if you're producing high quality video and not showing that in the end, it's almost like there's no point in filming with like the HD 1080p cameras. So we did that in the end. So this is the radio room. In college they produce their own radio program, so they've got this sound booth set up to record that. It's all very professional equipment, so you got the high quality microphones, the mixing desk here. You also have a secondary microphone over there for a guest, and then all the controls for playing it are on here and in here. So all you have to do is turn the computer on and it's set up to record straight away. The program we use to record is Audacity. It's just a very simple program for recording audio clips, playing them back. You can do some editing inside the program, but I chose to use Premiere Pro to create our radio advert just because I found it a little bit easier. So yeah, in here we recorded the voiceover for our documentary, and we also got the same woman to record our radio and to keep continuity between the two products that we were developing. So it is as simple as just turning up the presenter's microphone, making sure it's turned on, pressing record in Audacity, and then speaking into this microphone here. When you're finished, pressing stop, bringing this down, and then you can play it back by putting the Audacity volume up and turning the speakers on. What I did was I recorded a few different versions of the radio. One of them I noticed made a mistake on one of the lines, so it's good to have different recordings so you can take the best pieces of each section and put them together to get the best sounding radio advert and voiceover. I think the benefits are that it is a high quality production place. So you got the mics high quality, the computers are completely sort of kitted out, so they've got all the latest equipment and software to use. One of the problems we did encounter was it was slightly too loud when we put it into the documentary compared to the other footage. This was easily rectified by just changing the volume levels in Premiere. Because I was now used to using Adobe Premiere Pro, when it came to producing the radio advert, I also chose this software to produce that. So in a similar way to how we produced the video, I simply imported all the files that we needed, the voiceover recording, and then the additional recordings for the advert, as well as vox pops and music. And then all I did was use the razor tool to cut them down and place them in the correct places. I'll loop the Frank Sinatra song again, and then just place use the snapshot tool in our final documentary sequence. I've got this single frame for the title and just put radio advert on the top using the title tool again. This was just something that our tutors wanted us to do when putting it onto YouTube, so it gave a bit more context as to what you were watching. I then had to export it as a video file, not an audio file, just because it was going onto YouTube, and that was the easiest way to put it on our blogs. That's the reason behind that. So I exported it in the same way that I did our final document. So the program we used to construct our print advert was Adobe Photoshop. This is a photo manipulation piece of software. It has many advanced tools to help you sort of edit it with a single image or combine a few to produce something completely different. It is a very simple layout once you know what to do, and I've used it before, so I understood the software and the program, how to use each tool, and most of the tools that we did use I had used before, so I know what to do with them. First of all, we imported our original image into Photoshop. This had sort of blurry edges between the coffee beans, and the first thing we did was we rectified this by using the rectangular marquee tool to draw out the different stripes for our Union Jack image, and then the content aware move tool to duplicate the coffee beans and just along this clean edge and just paint the edges in. It just cleaned up the image very well, gave us more clearer lines. I just think it looks a lot more professional with these lines in there. It had to meet the codes and conventions of a print advert, specifically one that was done for Channel 4. So what we did was we used the Channel 4 identity style guide, which helped us to sort of gain the codes and conventions that were specific to them, one of which being the 4 logo. The guide also had a selection of colours that they approve of, and from these we chose the yellow because it really did stand out against the dark browns and the light browns in the image. The rest of the colours we first of all started out with a brown, but it blended in a bit too much, so we chose a contrast entry. In order to put the final products of the documentary onto our blogs, we uploaded it to YouTube. So being a social media site in itself, it was then very easy to share it with other people to get audience feedback. And again, it gives the option to embed it, so we could put it straight onto the blog in that way. There's many options to share it to different social networks, such as Twitter, there's options to share it to many different social networks, such as Twitter, Facebook. Being part of Google, you share it to Google+, but we decided against this because not that many people use it. But a big one was actually putting the link onto Twitter, which then give people the option to either comment through Twitter or go follow the link and put it onto YouTube. So it's dead easy. You just type in it says comment there, and then you just share your thoughts, and then just post it onto the bottom and the comment section of the video. And then by sharing it onto Twitter, you can mention people, so people just responded in and replied to that. I think it was probably the best option to put it onto YouTube, and there's other sites that are similar, such as Vimeo and Dailymotion, that kind of thing, but for us the most common one is YouTube, and it gave it the broadest available audience for us. And then sharing it, having social media websites, sharing it to Facebook and Twitter, then allowed us to reach more people rather than just having a singular YouTube video alone. It does give you the option to put tags, so we use tags such as like coffee, documentary, A2 media studies, to see other similar people in similar situation and commented on them. By putting them in, I then commented on other people's as well, because sharing our work with other people from media studies, they understand what needs to be in the documentary and can give a more valid opinion, which is what I tried to do. I went through the conventions and looked at other people's work and shared it and commented it like that. So yeah, social media has really helped in our audience feedback. We did ask, I sat some people down and asked them a few questions from the questionnaire and videoed it. They also went onto YouTube, those videos, and then this evaluation video will go onto YouTube as well. It's just a really clean, really easy way of organising video content and sharing it to whatever medium you need to put it onto. There's lots of different options as well for quality, that kind of thing. The one that we used for our audience feedback wasn't the highest quality one. We did upload a second version after figuring out that you could convert the Premiere file into a more suitable YouTube file, which is the one we put on the blog as a final product. So Piktochart is a very similar program to Infogram. They both produce infographics. However, I feel that Piktochart is a bit more detailed, and like it sort of, you can customize it a lot better. It gives you the option to insert like images. We've got the coffee cup there that I put on it, and I use this during the evaluation stage as opposed to Infogram. So again, it just displays the results of our audience feedback questionnaire. but also then gives the ability to add in a lot of text discussing the question asking what have you learnt from your audience feedback. I just think it's a really good piece of software. It was free to use, so you could customize it. You can add in a lot more kind of things. All the charts, they're very similar from the ones from Infogram. You just have better control over what you can do. And then again, it is just a better way of displaying graphics on the simple charts that you kind of get from Excel. More advanced tools that you can use is this as well. You can add in maps, videos, that kind of thing, but obviously they didn't really apply to us. We could have inserted a link to our original radio trailer video, but because that was right next to it on the blog, it didn't seem like there was no need to do that. But it has got that option, and again you can either embed or save it, and I chose to save it again just to keep things easier. So like I said before, during the research and planning stage I used Prezi to produce mind maps, but for the evaluation I needed to be a bit more in depth and go over more and more things. So I watched a few tutorials and looked more in depth into the software, and you can actually use certain themes, which is what I did here and a few different other parts of the evaluation. It just sort of provides a bit more interesting to look at really, and displays it sometimes in a more clear way, especially because when you produce a mind map you can set it up so that it goes for each individual point, but it's a bit tedious to do that. Whereas if you have a theme like this, these groups of things that you can look at, and then you can set a path so you can play it almost like a presentation, so it shows one thing after another in the order that you want the person to watch. So all the person then had to do was press the arrow button, and then it just went through. It does start you off with a very basic path, so you create one thing and then it adds that to next to the list, but if you want to go back and edit it, it's very easy to do so. So mine, it just goes through each individual point and highlights it and moves through it in a more logical way than sort of just moving around by yourself. Another one that I produced was for a different evaluation question, and that one was here, and that was just a different theme because it sort of collected different things in a different way. So I think that looking at the themes, some of them are more suited to different things where a mind map wouldn't be. You can do all kinds of presentations in that way, so it's almost like an upgraded version of PowerPoint. Obviously it's accessible from all computers as long as you have a web connection, and then you can show it to anyone, and then it has the options to save it or embed it, but obviously to get the best out of the software you have to embed it and then present it how you wanted to do that. I just think it makes things a lot clearer. They're not as bored, it's not creating like a long essay, it's splitting it up into different sections which make it everything easy to read and easy to separate from each other, so each kind of thing that I've talked about gets a different section on the thing, and then you can finally conclude it with these larger paragraphs there.